Welcome to November. It is where the contenders are decided in the NFL. November 1st is when I'm recording this, 10 a.m. on the nose. We'll take a look at where the Bengals have been in November in the Joe Burrow era, talk about that, what they can do going forward to maybe inch back toward that. I'll try to tone down the optimism a little, but I can't help it. What else are you going to do? Sit here and sulk? That's no way to live life, so we'll talk about that. And we'll plus put into perspective, like, what do they need to do in November and then December to make sure that they are playing in January, which is far from guaranteed right now, really even far from likely right now, but it's only the midway point of the season. This is where people are separated. This is where teams go from meh to good. This is where some teams go from good to great. And there are other teams, there's always that juggernaut in October who falls off a cliff a little bit. Bengals don't have to worry about being that this year, and I don't know that they've ever had to worry about being that. I guess in the Marvin days they did a couple times, didn't they? But at any rate, we're going to look forward. We're going to see where they can go. September, October, they're out of here. They're behind us. If you've been watching football long enough, if you aren't a casual, you know that November is where the league kind of starts to separate, where we start to see who's for real when the weather gets colder and who's going to kind of slack off. And in the AFC, there's not a lot of room to slack off. In the NFC, we're kind of already starting to see that a little bit. I guess in the AFC, after that Thursday night game, some people maybe want to start questioning the Texans. I don't know. Well, we're not here to talk about that today. We'll find out. We can't bury the Texans after one primetime loss to the New York Jets, which, by the way, went against the Bengals. The Bengals kind of need those other teams in the same realm as them to get pushed down, and teams like the Texans to just run away with the division. But got to control what you can control. If the Bengals would control what they control, such as at home against the Eagles last week, they'd be in much better position. But here we are, and we'll try to wrap everything up nice and neat as we go forward into the meat of the NFL schedule. You are in the jungle. I'm Matt Edwards. Thank you for tuning in. So many good podcasts out there, and you choose to listen to this one. I appreciate that. So last night was trick-or-treat in my neighborhood, and a Bengals fan in my neighborhood reminded me, which I think we all remember, but he reminded me that 2 years ago, on Halloween night, the Bengals on a Monday night went to Cleveland and got just wrecked by the Browns. The final was 32-13. It was ugly. Chidobe Awuzie tore his ACL. And even though the Bengals would go on to make the Super Bowl, or make the AFC Championship, made the Super Bowl the year before, that was, as bad as that game was, that was kind of the rock bottom turning point. Now, there's a lot of differences in that year and this year, in particular on the defense. Offense is maybe better this year, but on defense, there's a big difference. However, it prompted me to go back and look at where the Bengals were on November 1st, which is where we're at today, in the Joe Burrow era. So throw out the rookie season. It doesn't really matter, right? They were a mess. He got hurt, blah, blah, blah. So 2021, the year they make the Super Bowl, on November 1st, they were 5-3. So pretty good. They would have a nice run toward the end, get hot at the right time, take it all the way to the Super Bowl where they led at the 2-minute warning, and it was ripped out of their hands by a terrible pass interference call by Ron Torbert in the Super Bowl. However, on November 1st in 2021, they were 5-3. Let's go to 2022. On November 1st, they were 4-4. It was kind of you weren't feeling great about it at that point either, because they had just come off the Super Bowl and they're 4-4 going into November. You didn't feel excellent about that. They won 10 straight. They end up losing in the AFC Championship in Kansas City. And then last year on November 1st, they were 4-3. So a game, what's that? Pretty much a game worse than they are at this point. Game and a half. However, on November 16th last year, of course, Joe Burrow goes down with the wrist injury. They end up going 9-8, still a third consecutive winning season, but they do miss the playoffs. I think 9-8 probably gets them in this year, at least gives them a shot. And then this year, of course, they're 3-5, which is the worst they've been at this point on November 1st. So 2021, you're 5-3. 2022, you're 4-4. 2023, you're 4-3. And now 2024, you are 3-5, and your fate is to be decided. I say that to say this. There will be a team, there will be probably 2 or 3 teams that in November, where the separation starts to occur, gets hot. Maybe that's the New York Jets. We saw them take down a good Texans team last night. Maybe it's the Colts. They have benched Anthony Richardson in favor of Joe Flacco, who led the Browns to the playoffs last year. or maybe it's the Cincinnati Bengals. I think those are the three teams you look at right now in the AFC and say, one of those three teams, all three of them right now, by the way, out of the playoff picture. They're the first ones out. The Colts are at 8, Bengals at 9, Jets, even after their win last night, are at 10. I think you look at all three of those teams and say, one of those three is going to make the playoffs, if not two. Now, they've got a mountain to climb here. Either Baltimore or Pittsburgh is going to be in as a wild card. Los Angeles is right there. The Chargers in that 7 spot. And then Denver, who's won 5 of their 6, and we'll talk about them a bit later, are now 5-3. So nothing easy, of course, but someone's going to get hot. Can it be the Cincinnati Bengals is the question I'm clearly getting to here. They're going to have to do some things. They're going to have to make some adjustments. But if this is a team that can go, and I know it's November 1st, I think we're allowed to start talking playoffs now. I mean, that's kind of where we're at, right? Like, no one's upset that they're 3-5 because that impacts their AFC North standings in November. We're upset that they're 3-5 because 2 reasons. 1, they look like a 3-5 team. And 2, you think if Joe Burrow's healthy, this is a team that is in the playoffs. And right now, it doesn't feel like that. I looked at the New York Times playoff simulator again. As of right now, 27% chance, according to the New York Times, to make the playoffs. Now, that goes up a lot if they can reel off some wins here. If they can go 6-3 down the stretch, that goes up to like 82%. However, sorry, as I'm getting a million texts because I forgot to silence my phone. They've got to make moves. They've got to make adjustments. And if they do get in, they will be a team that no one will want to face. Can you imagine having like an excellent regular season, getting a 2 or a 3 seed, and then having to face Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase in round 1? Same thing can be said for Rodgers. Can you imagine having an awesome regular season and you get Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, and Garrett Wilson in round 1? Now, the Jets, I think, are a worse team than the Bengals. But at any rate, you don't want to see guys who are experienced and have been to Super Bowls in that first round of the playoffs. So I'm saying, just get in. Just get in, and we'll see what happens. But right now is when that journey starts. November, there's no more losing to bad teams. I'm not even talking about the Raiders today. If they can't beat the Raiders on Sunday, I will throw this whole episode out, and we'll start looking at mock drafts because that's where we're headed. Bengals are an 8.5-point favorite hosting Las Vegas on Sunday. I'm looking at what I wrote down for the podcast. Didn't say anything about the Oakland Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders, wherever they're at. Who cares? They stink. They have no business even hanging with the Bengals. It should be over with 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Simple as that. So we won't even talk about that. But if a team works hard, has an excellent, let's say 12-5 season, then they get Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, hopefully T. Higgins in round 1. That's scary, is it not? You don't want to be on that side of the coin. But they've got to make it happen. How does it happen? I've talked about it ad nauseum. Everyone has. You got to make adjustments. And on play calling, for me, is the biggest one. Let it rip on offense. What you're doing is not working. Scoring 17 points at home is unacceptable with the level of talent you have on this team. You look at the last few games, and after going for 38 against Baltimore, 17 against the Giants, 21 against the Browns, 7 of which came on special teams, and then 17 at home against the Eagles. And I know turnovers kill you, but that's part of the game, man. You got to put the guys in position to succeed. Zach Taylor and this coaching staff have to find ways, and there are little intricate ways that no one outside of that building, and even a lot of people inside of the building, can't seem to figure out. But you have got to figure out a way to get the most out of what you have. You have way too much talent on that side of the ball to not be scoring mid-20s or higher per game. Now, of course, you're going to have outlier games. I wasn't mad when they scored 17 against the Giants because you just had to get a win. But 3 consecutive games of not hitting 20 points with this offense, you can't do that. So find out the adjustments you need to make. Let it rip. Let it rip, man. And I know it's easier said than done. It's easy to sit here and talk into a microphone about it. You're an NFL coach. You're one of 32 in the world to have a prestigious job. People would kill for these jobs. Figure it out. Lou Anarumo on the other side of the ball, same thing. Get creative. I know your guys are getting older. I know that the front office put a lot of hope in some guys and it hasn't really panned out. They put hope in guys rather ensuring that those positions were, what they needed to be. And you got an aging roster over there. Figure it out, man. You've got one thing this defense does not lack compared to most NFL teams is depth. You've got guys who do not start, who no one feels bad about having come in the game, right? Do we need to see John Meta, the preseason superstar, come in and play a few snaps? When he has, he's been fine. Do you need to put Joseph Osai in position? I mean, we know how athletic he is. Myles Murphy, mix it up. He's been playing better. Jordan Battle, get him out there. He had good coverage on Sunday against Devontae Smith on that one bomb touchdown. Find ways. Bring that Mike Hilton blitz back. Let's see some more of that. There's got to be ways. If you're going to go out there and give up 30 or more a game, at least, cause some chaos along the way. Find some ways. You're getting burned anyways. So do some wild things that at least amongst the burns, you will get a couple turnovers. You will get a couple fumbles. You'll have some tip balls that you have a chance to pick off. Create chaos. Because trying to play sound right now, just not happening. So you might as well go out, get nuts with it, and try to force some turnovers. You got to adjust. On both sides of the ball, just let it rip. Because right now, you're not, on defense, you're not talented enough to just line up and beat people. And on offense, you play scared. Let it rip. So that's the first thing. You got to make adjustments, and you got to clean things up. This goes kind of in the same realm. I mean, if you tackle week 1, you win. If you don't fumble week 1, you win. And we're looking at 4-4 right now instead of 3-5. If you make a field goal against Baltimore, 54-yarder, I know, but Evan McPherson inside 55 should be money. And that one wasn't all his fault. But, I mean, these are the little things that, eliminate penalties in crucial spots. I mean, look at those 3 things right there. Tackle against New England. Cut the missed tackles in half against New England, and you probably win that game. Make a field goal against Baltimore. You probably win that game. Don't get a questionable pass interference against Kansas City. You probably win that game. And if you do those 3 things, you're 6-2 right now. There's 3 plays on the season. And I know there's games come down to that all the time. But you can make an argument that they're 3 plays from being 6-2. And that's why I don't think it's insane to say no one would want to see them if they can get in. But there are these little things they have to do better on a regular basis that really they've been pretty good at under Zach Taylor. He gets a lot of criticism for a lot of things. One thing they've been solid at is they've not had these little errors like we've seen this year. So we know that they're keeping an eye on these. We know that they're probably frustrated with these and getting cussed out in meetings about this stuff. Just got to see it on the field. Again, 3 plays. That's why people, if you want to look at mock drafts and do all that, have fun. Go for it. Do what you want. I'm not going to tell you how to be a fan, but they're right there. And I'm not saying they're great, but they're right there. And you just got to get in. So this is November. This is where you clean those things up. November, baby. That's the slogan of the month. It's just a month. Look at the calendar. You can remember it. And then the final thing is, do you make a move? NFL trade deadline is November 5th, just a few days away. Calais Campbell's down in Miami. They only have 2 wins. Jadeveon Clowney in Carolina. Are these people that you try to go out and throw a 5th rounder at? You might as well. You can't draft anyways. And when you do draft good guys, you got Jordan Battle sitting over there on the bench. I mean, why would you not? Get some more pieces. Create some more chaos on that defense. Get guys who are veterans who have been around. Jeffrey Simmons with the Titans. I mean, the pass rush outside of Trey Hendrickson is non-existent. You need a pass rush to win in the NFL, especially when your secondary has been as bad as it has in Cincinnati. You want to help them out? Put the quarterback under pressure. Do the Bengals do that? Probably not. They don't make in-season trades, but they've been adjusting in other areas over the past few years. So I think it's reasonable to think maybe it'll be discussed. I know they like to have those cheap guys on rookie contracts. Who doesn't? But sometimes you got to spend a little to get a little. I would hope that some of the playoff revenue would make up for whatever extra money you have to spend to get a guy like Calais Campbell. Jeffrey Simmons probably ain't going to happen. Jadeveon Clowney, though, I mean, do you put that guy where he doesn't have to be the guy? I don't care if he's old. I don't know how old he is. He's old. He can still play. We've seen it. Google his name. So it's November. Decide who you want to be. Decide who you want to be. Are you okay with being about a 500 team? You can't be a 500 team anymore. Are you okay with 9 or 8 wins? Or do you want to try to go for 10? Do you want to try to go 10-7 and win, whatever it is? I can't do the math in my head. But yeah, win 5 of your next. Are you going to win? That's the thing. Do you want to win 5 of your next 9, or do you want to win 6 or 7? Because the schedule's not that daunting. You're going to have to pull some big ones, but you've already got Kansas City out of the way. Philly's a pretty good team. You got them out of the way. What do you want to do? It's November. The Bengals front office decides who they want to be right now with 4 days left. I don't think they'll do anything, and that's why I talked about those other things first, of making the adjustments, to cleaning things up, because I don't have faith that the Bengals believe in these in-season trades and all that. But who do you want to be? Did you sign Joe Burrow to a $250 million contract to go 9-8? You got T. Higgins for a couple more months. It's probably the best wide receiver duo Joe Burrow will ever have. I know he's banged up, and that's why I've said you can't re-sign him. Even though a couple weeks ago I said maybe you do, because when he's great, you really do. When he's on the field, it's like, hell yeah, you resign that guy. But then you remember he's probably going to miss this Sunday. I don't know that for a fact yet. I don't think anyone does. But 9 games in, he's going to miss 4 of them, at least 3 of them. I'm getting off script here a little bit, but decide who you want to be. The AFC is not that intimidating this year. We'll get into that here in a little bit. Defense, I've said it. I know I'm kind of going over things I've said before. If you listen to the show, just get close to being top 20. You don't even have to be top 20. Be like 22 or 23. Here's where they're at right now. 24th in yards allowed per game, 21st against the pass, 24th against the run, and then 23rd in points allowed per game, which they've gotten better, but it helps when you play the Browns and the Giants in back-to-back weeks. So that's really a kind of a false number. The Bengals are 23rd, in points allowed per game, but you put that asterisk there because of the Browns and Giants, where they only allowed 17 and 14 points to offenses that barely have a heartbeat. What you want to look at is their last 3 home games, where they've given up 37 to Philadelphia, 41 to Baltimore, and 38 to Washington. Unacceptable. So right now they are in the bottom. If you're looking at NFL defenses as 4 tiers, you put them in quarters, they are in that bottom tier, no doubt about it. Just get to that third one. Get to that third one to give your guys a shot every week. Because I say all this stuff. I say you want to sneak in, do this, do that. You either got to bring some help in, or you've got to make some big adjustments, because that doesn't work. You don't win in the NFL when you're giving up 37 points a game at home. I don't care who you have on offense. I mean, how many offenses, the 2007 Patriots, are they going to come all unretire and age 20 years in reverse? No, not how it works. As great as the Bengals offense has the ability to be right now, and I know the last few weeks that's questionable, but they've done the right things. It just hasn't always showed on the scoreboard, especially against Philly anyways. Yeah, you're not going to win with that. So defense, got to do something. Again, kind of the same old story all season. I trust the offense to figure it out. They were putting together good drives on Sunday before things unraveled. They just had a couple unlucky turnovers. So just get in that third tier, somewhere close to the top 20. Be like 20th. If you can be 19th, that's great. If you can be 21st, that's fine. But we saw Drew Brees and Peyton Manning have bad defenses for years. They would find ways to get in the playoffs. Now they had the luxury of not having Pittsburgh and Baltimore in their divisions, which is something, AFC South and NFC South, probably consistently the 2 worst divisions in football when you think about it. So they had that going for them. The Bengals don't have that. They probably have the hardest division in football because it's Baltimore and Pittsburgh. I mean, 2 of the best franchises that are ran in all of sports, so you got to deal with that every year. So again, it's another hurdle. Figure it out. It's November. Who do you want to be? So what I concluded is that the Bengals need to go 6-3 down the stretch here. Now, my expectations have changed. Coming into the year, I expected them to be a Super Bowl contender. Now, I just want them to get into the playoffs, and we'll see what happens. It's kind of like the 2021 expectations for me again. Just get in. If you can get a win, that would be preferable. But get one, get hot. No one wants to see this team. Promise you that. If they can get into the playoffs, that means they will have played well enough in November and December that you don't want to see them in round 1. Kansas City's I mean, they know what the Bengals can do. My expectations have changed. Let's look at this. If you can get in, I see 5 Super Bowl contenders in the AFC right now. Chiefs, Ravens, Bills, obviously, right? Chiefs have won 2 straight. They're undefeated. They should, hands down, be the favorite to win it again this year. Baltimore, for as flimsy as they've been in the playoffs, they've looked awesome at times. I know they just lost to Cleveland. Lamar Jackson a little beat up now, listed on the injury report with back and knee injuries, so we'll see what happens there. But until otherwise, I mean, Baltimore was the number 1 seed last year, hosted the AFC Championship, so you got to put them in there. And then the Bills. We know how good Josh Allen, when that team is humming, they are humming and look as good as anyone. So you got to put them in there. And then the other 2 I would put a tier below, Pittsburgh and Houston. I absolutely consider Pittsburgh a Super Bowl contender. And Houston, after last night, I know it's not looking great, but they're still in that second tier. Again, everyone loses games. Losing on the road in primetime to a desperate Jets team, if I'm a Houston fan, I'm not kicking myself too much this morning. So let's look at those, though, right? 5 Super Bowl contenders in the AFC. Bengals are a play away from beating 2 of them. Pass interference in Kansas City, missed field goal against Baltimore. Play away from beating 2 of them. That third team in the top tier, the Bills, Bengals have owned them the past few years. Owned them the past few years. So of those 5 teams and who I think are Super Bowl contenders, and I'm pretty confident all those 5 will be in the playoffs, so there's really only 2 more spots. Of those 5, I think if you took an internal anonymous vote against like the head coaches of all those teams, the number 1 team none of them would want to draw in round 1 of the playoffs would be the Cincinnati Bengals. Maybe the Jets, because if they can sneak in with Aaron Rodgers, I mean, those are two quarterbacks with Super Bowl experience who, again, I can't give up on Rodgers yet. I've seen him just be too good for too many years. And now with that receiving duo of Adams and Garrett Wilson, I mean, come on. But those are the 2 teams that I can promise you. No one, I mentioned the Colts earlier, and good for Joe Flacco, good for the Colts, but I don't think anyone's going to be shaking in their boots if they've got to host Indianapolis in a wild card round. If you've got Joe Burrow and T. Higgins and Jamar Chase coming in, you might shake a bit in the boots. If you've got Aaron Rodgers, Garrett Wilson, and Devontae Adams coming in, you're shaking in your boots. So again, look at this from the flip side of the coin. And I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but November is where teams start to separate. As I tell you for the 100th time on this show, just get there. Find a way to get there. And things could be a lot of fun. And look, fan however you want to fan. If you want to be someone who has the if you want to look at mock drafts, go ahead. For me, I mean, sports is, I think for a lot of people, it's a bit of a place to get away. Have fun with it. Don't be miserable. You want to be miserable, go follow politics and punch someone in the voting booth because you're not allowed to wear your little hat. Don't be miserable. Have fun. Just don't tell, I guess you shouldn't tell other people how they should be a fan. So maybe I'm doing a little bit of that right now, but do what you want. If you want to be miserable and look at mock drafts, my advice would be just to not watch if you're sick of this team. Easier said than done. There's a lot of nice things to do outside. Go apple picking. Hang out with your family. Have a fire. Enjoy yourself. If this team's making you miserable every Sunday, don't watch them. If every time you eat a certain food you don't feel good, quit eating that food. Do what you got to do. Go outside and roll around in the grass. Make a friend. Do it how you want to do it. Okay, bets. I'm going to quit doing bets because I've not been good at them. I don't really enjoy kind of breaking down points. I mean, it's so insane. Just like there's so much luck. There's obviously skill involved in gambling, but like the best bettors win like 60% of the time. So it's just not fun for me. I'm going to quit doing it. If you want to know my advice, shoot me a tweet. Shoot me in the comments, but I'm like 500 on the year, so I don't think I'm going to help you. Going to quit doing that. We will go out of the jungle here before we wrap things up because it's November, baby. I don't know if you've heard, but it's November. The Bengals have to start rooting hard now in their position against other teams as well. So out of the jungle this week, the Pittsburgh Steelers are on a bye. I hope they don't enjoy it. I hope they have a bad time. The Browns are hosting the Chargers. And as sickening as this may seem for the second consecutive week, you've got to root for the Browns. I'm sorry. We're at the point now where you've got to root for the bad teams to beat the good teams. So the Browns, 2 wins, 2-6, but the Chargers are right there at 4-3. So you want the Chargers are in that last wild card spot. So you got to root for the Browns to beat the Chargers this week, just the way it is. And then you also on Sunday Night Football have to root, which this will not be as difficult. You have to root for the Vikings to defeat the Colts. You really, 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 I guess you don't have to pay attention, but you got to hope that the AFC teams with the better records lose more often than not. So our big teams outside of the Bengals that we're rooting for, you throw up in your mouth a little bit this weekend rooting for the Browns, but it helps the Bengals. And then as well, the Vikings are probably a much bigger one because the Colts being right there and because it's an NFC team. And then let's take a look at this. The Baltimore Ravens play host to the Denver Broncos this Sunday. Denver has won 5 of their last 6 games, and they're not necessarily... Denver's got the number 1 wild card spot right now. They've won 5 of their last 6 after an 0-2 start. So they're now 5-1 in their last 6. They drummed Tampa Bay. They beat the Jets in New York. They housed the Raiders. Their only losses to the Chargers by a touchdown. They beat the Saints by 23 in New Orleans. 2-touchdown win against the Panthers last weekend. And now they go to Baltimore. Lamar Jackson's on the injury list. And Baltimore just lost to a bad Cleveland team. If the Broncos can pull off an upset this weekend in Baltimore, the Ravens fall to 4-5. If the Bengals do what they should do and beat the Raiders this weekend, the Bengals move to 4-5. Or excuse me, Baltimore would fall to 5-4. It's a big error right there. Baltimore would fall to 5-4. If the Bengals win, they would go to 4-5. The two teams then meet on Thursday Night Football just 6 days from now. And should the Bengals be able to beat the Ravens, which we know they can, it's a matter of will they, both teams here in November would be 5-5. It seems unfathomable that that's still a possibility, as miserable as this Bengals season has been, but it is. It is. I know a lot of people don't like the optimism. That's fine. I try to keep it as real as I can. Am I too optimistic? Maybe, but it's sports. Let's have fun with it. This isn't a life or death. So yeah, I'm just putting that out there. Denver is a hot team right now. This is kind of their measuring stick game, right? Hopefully they do better than the Bengals did in their measuring stick game. But actually, I don't know if it's a measuring stick game because they have no business winning that game. They go to Baltimore and then to the Chiefs. So we get to see how for real Denver is right now. Good news, it's really a win-win for the Bengals because if they lose their next 2, if Broncos lose their next 2, they knock down in the wild card standings. If they should somehow win one of their next 2, hopefully it's against Baltimore, then it kind of helps the Bengals either way. But you definitely want them to, you got to root, I think, still at this point in November, that's what month it is right now, you got to root against the division teams first. So crazier things have happened, and we'll see. If you're out on the Bengals this year, that's fine. You do you. Don't watch the games on Sunday. Keep listening to this podcast, of course, and I'll update you on everything you need to know. But that's where we're at. So that's all I got for you today. I'm trying to think, was there anything else that I wanted to throw in there? If you like me and you have the website Twitter, I am on there at Matt Edwards and saying things about the Bengals if that's what you're into. And you can see a picture of me, which is nice. Yeah. Yep. I hope everyone had a good Halloween. Hammer those Reese's. Go get that discounted candy today. Yeah. All right. We'll see if the Bengals make a trade. They won't, but if they do, we'll talk about it. So the podcast is called In the Jungle. If you like it, tell a friend about it. Give it a 5-star rating. Give it a subscription. Comment on YouTube. I'll comment back. Do whatever you want. My name's Matt Edwards. I appreciate you tuning in. We will do this again. There's what I meant to say. I got ahead of myself a bit there. We will do this again on Sunday evening after the Bengals play the Raiders. I'm not making any more guarantees. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on Sunday.